first meeting of 2023. Town of Inuvik technologists. They're located on the traditional lands of the Gwich'in and Inuvik people of the Northwest Territories. We are grateful to be to learn, work, and live on Treaty 11 lands within the Gwich'in settlement area and the lands of the Inuvik final agreement. We respect the generous sharing, traditional wisdom, and knowledge. We commit to honoring paths towards self-determination. Welcome, Alana. Item 2, adoption of the agenda. There is one addition, 4.1, the RCMP report. Any comments? Declaration of conflict of interest or pecuniary interest. Councillor Day.
8.1.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Delegations, presentations, or petitions. We have 4.1, the RCMP report. Any comments?
He was going to be here, but
I understand Mr. Semler has been transferred or is leaving, so he's not available tonight. Item 5, public question period. Nothing, Eric? Yeah, thank you. Item 6, adoption of the minutes, 6.1, minutes of December 12th and 14th, 2022 council meeting. We already corrected, I believe, item 9.2. Seconder was Councillor Devlin. The omission was not intentional, Councillor Devlin. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Thank you. 7.1, action items list. Any comments? Deputy Mayor Kulikowski.
I know it's maybe a funny time to even have this information available, but on item number 2, the compost program that we had kind of talked about, it talks about holding off until fall and looking at investigation. Are we looking at investigating putting a compost facility in at the waste, or are we looking at doing the project with these guys to bring these composters into people's homes?
Ms. Nailwood.
I believe it was sort of a combination
Oh,
of both. We were looking at putting in, doing something from a compost to get at the solid waste site. However, that's been on hold right now just because of staffing. And with the food science too, they had almost they had changed a little bit of their priorities too when I had talked to them at FCM. So we're gonna try and reconnect again.
thank you.
Any other comments? Item 8, new business. 8.1, survey results of the taxi fare increases. As you know, cab drivers are requested. Yes.
Councillor Day has to leave the room.
Oh, yes, Councillor Day. As you're aware, the taxi drivers have requested an increase in their rates, which are all in front of you. There is also a Schedule C option of rates as prepared by administration. There's also the results of the online survey, a lot of comments. Bottom line, most people are in favor of an increase, but not at the rates as presented. Smaller increase, I think it's justified. I do like Schedule C. Maybe I could have some comments from council on what we'd like to start. Deputy Mayor Kulikowski.
Thank you. And thank you for the thorough, like giving us all of the responses. It was really interesting to read through. So just to start off, my personal kind of thoughts on this one would be looking at that alternative line that was presented on Schedule C with the $2 increases, smaller increases anyway, but increases nonetheless. And just on that sheet, the only thing I would ask is where the pickup and delivery of goods or no passengers involved, if that couldn't be increased more than the $1, I don't know if that's just not a service that doesn't get used often, so the drivers aren't really worried about it, or, you know, that seems like a place where, as a convenience, maybe an increase could be made. So beyond my comments on that, I found it very interesting reading the comments and how many people brought up the potential of an elder's discount. And I'm just curious if that has been considered, or how that might even look from a town perspective, or if it's even an option. As well as the amount of times that folks talked about having card machines, whether they're POS, debit, Visa, however they're cited. Another person in there asked about use passes and things like that, and seeing as taxis are our public transportation in town, is that something that we've ever looked at? And then lastly, just a couple of folks in their comments mentioned the clarity, or metered versus fixed pricing, and that we should switch to meters, but I'm sure we've done research in the past to see where the differences are, like would it actually cost people more if it was metered, etc. And then there was a couple comments in there as well about maybe having this come under review every 2 to 4 years, instead of, you know, a huge increase requested at the 9-year stage. So I don't know if there's any of those that can be spoken to, but those are the things that I really picked up through there. And lastly would just be some of the feedback that was in there that didn't actually have to do with this survey. Is there an opportunity to send those notes in a letter to the taxi companies or something, that those were items that were brought up by the public? So
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Gallons?
Yeah, I echo a lot of Deputy Mayor Kulikowski's comments as well. And I think a review would be very prudent, because it's only fair for the taxi drivers to have a chance to put their thoughts forward and their requests forward. Maybe every year, well, every couple of years. I guess the question I have in my mind though is a taxi driver considered a business owner? I understand that there's additional costs associated with driving taxi, but are some of those costs things that they can then claim back against their business? And that's a question that I have that I want to get clarity on. So I guess my concern is, if we, and I don't think the rate they're asking for is fair, given the vulnerable population that's in our community. I'm open to a modified increase that's been suggested. But I'd also like to know what are some of those expenses that they mentioned are things that they can claim against their business as well.
Off the top of my head, I imagine the biggest one is the increase in price of gas. That would have a major impact. As far as I know, for income tax purposes, taxi drivers are self-employed.
Yeah.
So it would be more or less a sole proprietorship or something to that effect. It's my thoughts on it anyway. Maybe SAO would clarify some of that.
Unfortunately, not privy to taxi drivers' tax returns or how they do it, but I would say even if there's a sole proprietorship, if it's an employment expense, again, I'm not a tax expert, but I mean, you do get to claim employment expenses, so their gas or stuff like that to visits. They should, I would assume, get to declare that. Even if there's sole proprietorship, it's just the difference in how you do your taxes, basically.
Councillor Devlin.
Yeah, I think one thing we have to remember is not just cost of gas going up, it's their cost of living as well. They also are members of our community, and they also are affected by everything else as well. So we're just talking about sort of making up their gas. We still also have to think of the cost of living increase. I'm also very comfortable with a hybrid, sort of a hybrid amount as well. But I do have questions just about the number of cabs in town, and the average calls per hour. I don't see any of those numbers on any of this. And I know that we've had pretty much 30 cabs in town since I've been here. And maybe that's something we can take a look at and review. I know there's complaints. I know there's complaints about taxis at night, about that it's difficult getting cabs at night. And I'm sure the Director of Protective Services can fill us in on some of those details, but we don't know the state basically of our taxi industry. To sort of be able to sort of formally understand both their revenues, but also their expenses in the back end. This could be a $10 million industry, and we just don't know about it. We don't know the numbers. So I would like to, like I said, we can certainly, I'm very comfortable in the hybrid end of coming up with some model, but I would like a little more clarity from the cab companies as well. I'd like some numbers, so you can take a look at numbers of cabs, licenses on the street, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you.
I could maybe address some of those questions if you'd like. If
Yeah,
it's
go ahead.
okay, so as far as the number of cabs out there, under the bylaw, the passenger transportation bylaw, there could be 30 licenses, but that's not how many cabs. So right now we have 2 that have been defaulted back with the town that we have not reissued for that very reason. And we can request also we can request the call logs from the companies. We have in the past had a lot of difficulty getting one of the call logs from one of the companies. And the other part of it is many times people are phoning the individual cabs and not going through the companies, and so it doesn't make it onto the log. So sometimes that becomes also very difficult to try and get the numbers and that. However, we've been trying to figure out how to get around that, and just for this council, we had looked at in the previous iteration of the passenger traffic, making it so that you had to go through the cab company, that dispatch number to do it. But both cab companies said, no, that's fine with them if they don't. So it never got put into the bylaw because the cab companies or the 2 taxi companies that are licensed didn't seem to have a problem for whatever their reasons were at the time. Now, we can always, again, one of the major things that's going to be coming through in 2023 is we are going to be taking another serious look at the rest of this bylaw in the passenger transportation bylaw as to there's certain things we want to clear, because it is a little difficult to read in some areas. I think we need to clarify and simplify it, and that's from the Director of Protective Services. Municipal enforcement also said as times change and people change and things like how we want to do. But I know that doesn't completely answer your question, Councillor Devlin, but we are trying to limit any of the new right now. It's not an official policy, but we are not issuing any new licenses if one is returned back to the town, kind of thing, just to reduce the numbers down. But I will pass it on to the Director of Protective Services to see if we can get the call logs or some stats from the taxi companies.
Thank you.
I should mention also, there are some year-to-year permits, which are basically leased from the town. The intent of those were for long-term residents who couldn't afford to buy the licenses at the time. And the intent was when they relinquished the license for whatever reason, that license would not be reissued. So I believe there's 4 right now. 3 or
5.
Yeah, something like that. So eventually those will be deleted as well. Anyway, any other comments?
Yeah,
Counselor?
it's Alana here.
Okay, go ahead.
It's
Alana.
okay if I go ahead? Okay, thank you. I too prefer the amended version we saw. I mean, one thing that jumped out at me was $50 to or from the airport. That's very high. That strikes me as people will find other ways out to the airport rather than taking a taxi at that price. And I too wondered about the delivery charge. I mean, in my mind, that's one place to make up some revenue. But otherwise, I agree with everybody saying that we need to go with those amended ideas rather than the very high rates that I don't think most people in town will be able to afford. And also, I wish the taxi drivers would come forward more often. If I'm right, and Grant can correct me if I'm wrong, I understand that it's on their incentive to come forward and ask for an increase. So the fact that this has been 8 years, just about 9 years, makes it a real issue.
Thank you, Councillor Merrill. Councillor Wayman.
After reading all the comments from our community, which is muchly appreciated from everyone. A lot of concerns. A lot of good comments, a lot of, as usual. But at 66.5% increase, that's not affordable for anybody. Reflecting on today's increases and everything else, it's around 25 to 30%. And I realize the 8 years, 2014 to 2023 here, 2022, but 66.5% is insane. The $50 from the airport that's just like Lana said, that's really up there. You know, 33% in the area there, but also in the rates. Too bad it's such a big spread. The years, like so many years since they come back, and too bad there's no taxi drivers here to represent this or defend this. I'd much prefer them to hear what I'm saying. I'm sure you guys would too, but that's too much. And maybe we should be looking at a 2-year gradual increase. And maybe they should be here debating with us on this, having a bigger meeting about it.
Any other comments? Councillor Harder.
Yeah, I agree with the amended version of this. I think a $2 increase is fair. I also think that, it's my opinion, adding the extra person fee is a little bit steep for, I mean, especially parents with kids. We're going up. It seems to be a lot. I personally think that one fee per cab would be more affordable. And yeah, I think, and I agree with Councillor Wayman, I think that the cab company should be here to defend this. That's it. Thank you.
Would you agree with Schedule C?
Yes.
Anybody who hasn't commented yet before? Okay, Deputy Mayor Kulkowski.
I'm just curious if there's any response to any of my questions or comments.
Sorry?
So I'm just curious if there's any response to any of my questions or comments.
Yes, they all would.
Okay.
I just, regarding the comment about being here, if you recall, at the December meeting, there was a bunch of them here who we said we'll be talking about it at the January 9th meeting. And they were told that it would be here, so. So if you recall, when they were all somehow thought we were that. Anyway, I would like clarification, just Deputy Mayor Kulikowski, when you said looking at the pickup and delivery of goods where there's no passengers involved. So he said, now, right now that would, under the amended, it would be $14, right? Because it's $6 plus the fare, right? So it's $8 plus the
Okay.
six. So I just wanted to.
I ignored the plus the fair part.
No.
Okay, that makes more sense to me then.
Okay.
And then what about elders?
Again, there's never been one in there. It's something, and it's going back to the difference of, it costs the same whether the person's an elder or whether the person's not. However, that argument has two sides to it. In that any other places that give a discount to elders have the same situation. It's good. It doesn't, chocolate bar doesn't cost less because there's something to an elder, right? So the same thing. Should council wish to add another fare that like a discount for elders, then that's fine. Then you would have to define, okay, what is an elder? And what age, that kind of a thing. And in addition, then becomes, and then I guess it's up to, would be up to the person to have identification with them to prove that they qualify, right? Is that an extra burden on it? I realize it's a small community and everybody pretty well knows who is and who isn't, but still it could be somebody new or whatever. But to use a very, I'll say not formal wording, everything's open and to be added, changed on this list. If council want to put in there for something for elders, that's fine. That's, you know, that's, no matter what you do, it's not bringing the town any more money or actually creating any more of a, to want to call it an overhead burden to the town. It would be the individual taxi drivers collecting, having to figure out the fares and stuff like that. However you want to go forward. This is just again, as I mentioned in the briefing note, so, you know, there are the fares outside town court. Is that needed, you know, does this need more in-depth looking at even those ones as to, are they out of sync? Because again, just like the airport one, the $50, administration agrees that that's pretty outrageous, because I know other places for taxis, is a lot cheaper on airfares to airports on fixed fares. So, but again, if council wants to change, delete, add, I think that's why we bring it forward.
That answer your questions, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Gallons? Okay. Or Councillor Alexis?
After.
Okay, I think that the Schedule C, the option that we gave, it's fair for the taxi drivers, but as Councilwoman says, maybe they should be there for discussion on what we propose. And maybe we could put in place, we could put in place a review every 2 years. Every 2 years to ensure that they have taxi fare review and not having increase after 10 years or 5 years. You know?
The original, when they did, and here they come now, so there's two of them anyway. So the original, when we looked at the review again, and again, if council wants to change that portion of the bylaw, we can do all that. So that it is reviewed. It was back, as was previously said earlier, when the original bylaw in 2014, we did have a public hearing, we did talk to the taxi drivers and stuff like that. The basic premise was at that time is they said, when we want an increase, we'll come to you.
Okay.
And so that's why there was never anything, the onus put on the town to say, okay, if they feel that they need to increase, then they would come, and then we go through this process.
Councillor Gallons?
This is a question for clarity. I'm looking at one of the lines and it notes customer requested assistance and it has a certain charge in the fare. My understanding is there's one vehicle designed for folks who have a physical disability. So my question is, if someone gets into a regular cab and they have a physical disability, it's understood that that charge doesn't apply to them, or is that charge to them?
I don't have an answer for you.
And I may defer this to the Director of Protective Services. I saw her hiding in the background there, but this whole Director may hopefully clarify if I screw it up here, but
Yeah,
there was a lot of discussion, if we recall, for the people who were here on council before when we were doing this, over this whole accessibility and assistance and stuff like that. There was a lot of discussion about it. And this is what they came up with as to, and I can't remember if it's even in the bylaw, because we haven't put the bylaw. We're only looking in right now, it's just the fares. So again, there could be, I'd have to look back and see if there's something about it definitely,
But the accessible taxi costs the same as the regular taxi.
that was.
There's no,
there's no,
it doesn't cost this extra $2 or $4 if you need the accessible taxi.
Yeah.
It costs that extra money if like you're going out and you want the van specifically, or you want a truck or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's when that extra fare comes in.
Or there was things even, I think some of the discussion was about
Sorry, go ahead.
about assisting with people who have a lot of groceries and things like this. Now, some of the drivers would just do because of the gracious and stuff like that, but there was some question came back about, you know, people, the expectation of what is and I'm glad that we have some representation from the
Yeah.
drivers now, but that, what is the role of when you get a taxi? What is their role? Is it to drive you from point A to point B, or is it to door sort of some type service, right? So,
I guess from my perspective, I understand there's a difference. Someone's asking for help with groceries, someone's asking for help with children. But someone who has a physical disability who needs help to get into a vehicle, get out of the vehicle. I guess for me, I don't see the rationale in charging them for that. So, and like I said, I mean, I don't understand the context behind the fee, so I'm just trying to get clarity for myself.
Right. If you'd like to answer that question, go ahead. Yes, Chair.
But again, there would be no charge for
I'm just, I'm looking at the way that this is drafted.
Yeah, we do have answer. We do have a wheelchair access.
Okay,
We do have one, and the operator is car 24. And I don't know how much is the price. It may be same price. You have to ask him about that.
it is the same price. It's just what I just. Sorry, I mean, I apologize.
Basically, I think what he was referring to was an ordinary cab. Somebody who happens to be disabled or whatever, temporarily even. Should take a cab and needs help getting in the cab or getting out of the cab. Or help with their groceries, would you charge extra for that?
For the grocery, we do charge extra for that.
Yeah.
$2 extra, if customers request help. But about that handicap, I don't know the price.
Okay, does that answer your question?
it does, gives me more clarity for sure.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Councilor Herder.
I think that, who are the cab reps, like the companies, who are the two cab company owners in town?
Yeah, Wayne is here from Delta, but Abdullah Muhammad is not here from United.
I don't believe either of the two owners, so it's Delta and United.
Sorry.
Or the two owners here.
neither of the owners are here.
So my question is getting back to what you're saying, SAO is, in regards to the call center, where they all volume of calls. I think everybody knows that everybody has their favorite cab. So I think that with the volume of calls that they get, if they were to stop taking personal calls, the money would be spread evenly throughout the cab company like it is in other regions. It's just, I think that's another way to create income for all instead of income for.
Oh, you know,
certain
as well as I
individuals.
do, as long as there's cell phones, we're gonna have an issue with that.
I know, I get that, but that's one way to stop if we can. I don't know if there's any way to actually
Not that I'm
control that.
disagreeing with you. Any other comments? We seem to have a majority in favor of Schedule C. Do we want more information or are we ready for a vote on Wednesday? We're ready for a vote on Wednesday night?
Do we want to give them? the
I was
cab
just gonna
companies
say, I mean, do
an
they have
option?
any input to offer as well while they're here?
Maybe we should have both owners here on Wednesday night. How's that sound, Brad?
That's certainly up to council. If we have them here Wednesday night, then we probably will not be able to. Well, we might be able to have the bylaw ready,
Yeah,
just sort of on the side, kind of a thing. Unless you want to propose that the bylaw that's presented on Wednesday is that the bylaw, if we do present it on Wednesday, that it is, the amendment to the bylaw is under that alternate column, and then it can be amended, that can be amended. If you decide to change or something like that, and then you can do the first and second reading, because if we don't do something on Wednesday, then it's at least another month before these gentlemen can get their increase. Yeah. So, because this is one of the things you can't do retroactively, because they can't go back and chase after all the people that are taking the cab in January to get their extra money from type thing, right? So.
Councilor Gallons,
I would say let's get the bylaw ready for Schedule C. with the amended rates. And hopefully the owners are here, to provide their input and give us their thoughts.
Makes sense. Counselor Hart,
Do any of the cab drivers have anything to discuss with us, like to justify the increase?
That's not what we're inviting the owners for.
Well, I know, but yeah, I guess we could just leave the owners to it. They did come, show up.
Counselor Wayman,
Business is business, and very clearly, if you want to work with this, we should have the owners here discussing and negotiating this with us. I don't see how, and I understand all your concerns, but I think the bosses or the owners should be here and we should be negotiating this with them. I mean, if someone's proposing this, they should be here representing it. And we should be dealing with it. I don't see why the onus is on us to make the decisions for a business that we don't own. That's my thoughts.
thank you. Well, I would request that the owners of the cab companies be here on Wednesday night in case there are any questions for them, so you can convey that to both the owners. That they should be here Wednesday night. We'll, I guess we're prepared to do first and second reading on Wednesday with the Schedule C. And we'll leave it at that. No further questions? Move on. April, you want to let Ned? Item 8.2. Contracting of vending machines at the MSC. There has been a proposal to install vending machines there. The information is in front of you. How do you want to proceed? Do you want to go to an RFP? Or let the administration negotiate? Any comments? Councilor Wayne,
Currently, we operate these, correct? Or did
Say
in the past?
We did operate them. They were starting to cost a fair amount of money to fix because they were getting old.
Yeah, they get old fast. They actually outdated. They buy them. I would prefer an RFP because I'm sure there's more than one person in town that's interested in vending machines. There's some at the airport and I do not know of any others around town besides the airport, I believe.
Just for clarification, the gentleman that this proposals come from is the same person that runs the airport.
Well, Bill should be an RFP to be a fair process, like everything else should be, right?
any other comments? Deputy Mayor Kolakowski,
I would just reiterate that same point, that I would support the RFP as opposed to just negotiate it. Thank you.
Councilor Devlin, you had a comment?
No, except that I'm absolutely in favor of putting any type of public service into our building, whether it's privately financed or not.
Thank you. Any other? Councilor Wayman?
And the RFP, we would like it so these machines are stocked fully all the time and not empty at the time. With a lot of rules and regulations and styles, you know, like we want them to be, we put on our RFP, I'd like the town to add in the part where, you know, it's gotta be restocked at least every week or when they're empty or not, whenever they feel like it kind of deal.
Any other comments? Councilor Gallons?
I echo Councilor Lehman's comments and Councilor Devlin's comments and as well, Deputy Mayor Kulikowski. This is for the public, and I think it's only fair that it goes out to RFP.
Well, I guess consensus is to go to through a formal process. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Sorry.
Sorry?
Administration, we would like some clarification, I'm in agreement going to the RFP. Obviously, does council feel that they want to put limitations on what type of product can be sold? Or we can just say it is whatever the person wants to put in?
Councilor Wayne?
I think we should let them do it, whatever they want. I think because limiting them to what we decide is still micromanaging something we're putting an RFP out for. And I mean, so maybe he sells more Pepsi than he sells water, who knows? And that'd be up to him as a businessman, whoever gets successful.
I just thank you for that clarification.
I know once upon a time we discussed having healthy stuff. Maybe we should put both options out there. We would like a variety of healthy and sugar out the roof or whatever you want, but yeah, that's something we did discuss and actually quite a bit was about healthy food. And maybe that's something that we should discuss in the RFP of which you would like. I know kids like sugar and adults like healthy stuff, so we have to have a variety of for the public, I guess.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I would say the same about having options, especially low or no sugar options. Just for folks who either can't or don't have sugar or what have you. Also, while that's all being said, understanding that like full force Gatorade is about the same as having a Coke anyway, so making sure that there are options there, I think is just having Gatorade is not the same as having so.
And I understand, and that's one of the things we could put in it, and we will look, we will, as noted in the research that was done, Hay River contracts are out, so obviously we'll look, they don't have a set thing, so, but I mean, it is an RFP, so they're proposing how they want to do it, and we'll evaluate it. Because it's not gonna come down, on this type of thing, it's not coming down to the numbers, it's coming down to an evaluation who has the best proposal, right? It's not a tender. So we'll word it, tell us how you're gonna run them, what you're gonna do, then the services and stuff like that, and then we analyze it, that kind of a thing.
Well,
Councilor Wayne?
the RFP, you're right, is the best proposal we're gonna accept. But also we put some guidelines out there, well, a guideline of what we require, not a micromanaging one, but a guideline of what would be the best RFP of what we desire. So it covers everybody.
You give the basics, that's why it's an RFP versus a tender, and tenders are very specific, you will sell orange and red Gatorade, and this and that, where this is saying you're gonna have drinks, or what kind of vending machines do you propose, what types of things you're doing, maybe a thing of, maybe one of the evaluation criteria you could put in is, how are they proposing to handle, healthy choices? That can be one of the evaluations as to how they're doing it, as far as that, or those kinds of things, but, you put in a basic of here's kind of what we want, but we're not too sure how to do it. What are you proposing how to do it? And that's why it's an RFP versus the tender.
Councilor
Can I
Devlin?
just,
Councilor Merrill?
how about Councillor Devlin go first?
Councilor Devlin?
Thank you, Councilor Merrill. My question has to do with, should we be leasing the square footage of an area so they can figure out how many machines to put in? Are we limiting the number of machines, the location of the machines? Right now, we've got them in that little alcove, but we also have a machine upstairs. So I'm just wondering some of those parameters. I mean, if someone comes and says, I can put 12 machines in the building, and we say, well, you could, if we want them, that type of thing. Have we thought about some of those things? Thank you.
Any comments, Cecily Overheard?
We can certainly look at it. I think you have to, you'd want them in minimal spaces, by that, but in public accessible areas and not hidden back in a corner kind of a thing. So I think where the machines are right now, and one the most common place would be by the concession in that lobby there is where most of the people, you could put one maybe in the pool lobby. We have one up by the gym. I think that would probably be, I don't think we want a proliferation of them all over, and it also depends on where the power plugs are in the building as to where you can put them. Unless they're hand crank.
Councilor Merrill?
Thank you. Can I just clarify, we're talking vending machines only? We're not talking video games?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Councilor Wayne?
The other thing is power. So we are gonna figure out a percentage that, are they on their own power system, or are we gonna figure out a percentage, or what's gonna be the cut, because they do take power to run.
Again, that would all come into, probably one of the things we'll look at is the range of how Hay River is doing with territorial beverages or vending, or what the name of the company is, and how how. That would be the next step is the contract, okay, here's how you're doing it. Now we get into negotiations of exactly what price and that, or, I mean, if they're putting X number of machines, you can figure out, they come with a usage.
Yes.
thing, right? So then you go and you can figure out, okay, this is how much it's gonna cost for that, and you just put that into the
I'm
cost,
sure that road,
plus 10% for admin charge. You know?
yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Devlin.
Just a thought, if we don't limit some of the machines, I mean, if they put in a really, really fancy cappuccino machine, which I'm sure everyone will like, will that then cause issues selling coffee out of the concession at a future concession? I mean, I'm just trying to think of possible problems. But I'll take the cappuccino machine with the nice hot chocolate option.
The simple answer is we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but I think what it would be is when you do the RFP for the concession, which we would do, they would understand in
There's a
that,
fancy machine.
that there is these machines, and then they could work kind of around that, and maybe they could strike something with this.
The vendors plan.
Any further comments? Wife's direction is for administration to proceed with an RFP of some type. Thank you.
We will revise the briefing note and have a proper.
Thank you. Bylaws 9.1, third and final reading of the annual borrowing bylaw for the corporate credit card. Any questions? 9.2, third and final on the municipal line of credit. Any questions on that? Nine point three will be first and second reading of the new water and sewer utility rates bylaw. You have it in front of you, minimal increases, but any questions, comments? None? 9.2. Same thing with the solid waste levy bylaw. Again, there are minimal increases. Any comments? Sit for bylaws. So department head reports, 10.1. Public services report. Any questions? Deputy Mayor Kulikowski.
It's kind of a crossover between public services and capital projects. The second water tank, I know, is online now. Are we still looking at shutting down and refurbishing the original water tank, or has that all been done already?
I'll defer to the director of public works.
Thank you.
Couple of things have to happen before we can refurbish the existing tank. One is we have to have a plan. Second is it has to be summertime. So,
Right.
we're looking at getting a plan together and,
For this year.
well, it's going to be a capital item because it's going to be $500,000 minimum. So, okay, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Capital projects report, item 10.2. Any questions on that? 10.3, protective services report. Any questions for Chief Hammond? I do want to thank fire department and Jackie as well for the work you did in the sunlight. The fireworks were greatly appreciated. My granddaughters thought they were fantastic. And Jackie, you and Oscar and Ryan and the rest of the volunteers did a fantastic job. I heard nothing but good comments, so I wanted to pass that on. Thank you.
You should also acknowledge there's quite a few people at the FSC at the public works, but also like there's over a dozen people at FSC that worked really hard to put at least 16.
Thank you, Rick.
And leaves.
Thank you, everyone. No, it was greatly appreciated. Any questions? 10.4, community services. Any questions? Counselor Devlin.
Just looking for our pool update.
We are planning, it got full of water, there's an area where it appears to be some water coming out. It's in an area we're having to get a camera in, the plan is to do that tomorrow, just to see where that is. We did actually fill the water, the pool right to the top, and that's where.
I heard that, and so people
Yeah,
getting
no,
excited.
so it's just one area, the problem is we've got to get sort of a camera in just to confirm what this is. It could be just something very, very minor that we can do for dam site, but we have to identify what it is. And I think the plan is to do that hopefully tomorrow. We've had some staffing. I can't get into, that's slowed down some of our progress we need to do.
Anything further? Information items, strategic priorities chart. No questions on that. So Deputy Mayor Fulco.
When is our dates for our strategic planning update, please?
I have not set a date or talked to, I've been in some contact with Dr. McIntosh to see if he can join us virtually to do it. We're probably looking sometime in March. And it would have to be on a weekend, on a virtual, I'm assuming. So,
Counselor Devlin.
Could we have a couple of options for weekends before we book Dr. McIntosh, perhaps, just to see our availability?
Yep.
Thank you.
Anything further?
actually, sorry, if people want to submit to me, email me what your availability is in March, it's probably easier to have that. And then go to Dr. McIntosh. So, the other option is to do it, but he and I felt that probably it's a little harder. You could do it on 2 or 3 evenings in a row kind of a thing as well. But I think they having them stare at us on the screen is probably better.
Anything else? Okay, item 12, council concern. Anything? Deputy Mayor Kulakowski.
Just looking with the new semester starting at the school, are we looking at getting a request in for youth rep for the rest of this year?
Actually, I did make one phone call to the school. I never got a call back, so I'll follow up on that.
Thank you.
Councilor Harder.
I had somebody message me asking where the K was for the
Oh,
tourist sign.
Truck.
In the backseat of my truck. Would you like to see it?
No.
We are looking at,
Came off at the blizzard.
Oh, did it?
yeah, we're probably not gonna be able to replace it for the summer time, because we have to look and see exactly how we're gonna replace it, what the best way to get it back up there.
Well, it's on the inside, not the outside.
Yeah.
There you go.
Any other concerns? Councilor Wayne.
Not a concern, but a little bit of a rave. I love the carvings and the ice sculpture and everything, and so many pictures are taken. I think it was very successful. It looks so cool. I mean, I seen kids, I seen mothers and tourists and everything up there. It was really neat. And I hope that we continue on with that trend and we make more of them actually, to reflect what we've done, our community and our heritages. It was really nice to see. Thank you.
Can I just say that actually was 100% Inuvik gas. They stepped forward, they had their guides out there for 3 days, pouring blocks and building ice. They did that. And they actually want to encourage other businesses to jump in and also do that, because that was 100% them that did that.
And that's a great lead they pulled.
Yeah, it was, and
I
it was
hope other
fantastic.
businesses follow suit next year and you create a little show for us.
Yeah, no, it was great. People loved it. And I just make sure that they get the credit for that, because literally their guys were out there for, well, and I know some of it's like 50, but they were out there loading snow blocks or ice blocks that they pulled from the lakes.
Thank you. Councillor Devlin, do you have another, Councillor Gallons?
So I work at the Inuvik Transient Center on the weekends sometimes. And they were talking about those sculptures on the transient center, folks from other communities. We're talking about the sculptures and what was happening for the Sunrise Festival, so. To your team, Jackie, and all of the directors for putting it together as well as the business. It was awesome to see. So,
Anything further? See nothing. I need a motion to go in camera. Councillor Wingman, by Councillor Harder.